WDTFF.
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Hey, welcome back, FFers. It's DTFF. We are back on our regularly scheduled night at our regularly scheduled time. For those of you that did not join us last week, we were on Monday. We did a mock draft. Go back and check that out. It's on our YouTube page or audio. YouTube would be much better because you could actually see the picks we're talking about. But as I said, we're back. We got a great episode for you this evening. We're going to do a little mailbag, maybe a little pre-NFL draft chatter, since the draft is coming up here in 2 days from when we're recording here. But before we get into any of that fantasy goodness, I've got to introduce my most favorite co-host in the entire world, Jake Trowbridge. How are you doing, sir?
That would sound so much better if I wasn't your only co-host, but I'll take it regardless. I'm doing fine.
Still
How are
my
you doing?
favorite. I am terrific.
Well.
I am giddy with anticipation for this NFL draft on Thursday night, not only for fantasy purposes, but also for our beloved Green Bay Packers, just to see what they do. I might be walking around with tight pants for the next couple days here. I'm not going to lie.
Hey now, this is a PG show, and that stands for
Since when?
Pogo, by the way, as in pogo stick, as in the thing that is going to be in your pants if the draft goes the way you want it to for the Packers. We'll probably be talking about a lot of draft things here in our mailbag episode. It's a curated list of questions. Obviously, with the draft right around the corner, that's what's on everybody's mind, but that's not the only thing on people's minds. So we'll be talking about quite a lot.
That's right. That's right. But before we get into any of that, we've got to talk about what we're drinking. And we've gone back to what we had been doing there for a while. We got away from it for one reason or another, but we're back. We're both going to be talking about the same beer here. This is one that I provided this week. This is from Third Space Brewing. This is a Mailbag. It is a great spring beer. It's kind of that beer that is the transition from the super heavy stouts and porters of the winter into the lighter beers of the spring and summer. This is that good transfer beer where it's got some hoofta to it. I probably said that wrong. I apologize. But yeah, it's still got a little backbone to it, but it is lighter and easier to drink. So Jake, what do you think about this beer?
Yeah, this beer reminds me of, like, in the way that Oktoberfest is the transition from summer into winter. This is the transition from winter back into summer, and it has a Oktoberfest feel to me. It's just a little hoppier than your garden variety Oktoberfest, but I like it. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I love a good Maibach. I love it, especially if you're like at a festival in the spring when they have the pokers in the fire, and then they poke your beer with it, and the heat like adds some caramely flavors to it. It's one of my favorite things to experience. But this is a very good Bach. I like it a lot. Plenty of maltiness to it. Little bit of sweetness to it from the caramel malts, and yeah, it's got some nice kick of hops to it as well. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoying this beer.
I'm a big fan. Spoiler, because I forgot I had this in the fridge. I also have a Capital Brewery Maibach. I've never tasted them back to back, so I'm gonna be curious to see. At the end of the show, I will give my definitive ranking of Maibachs. So
nice.
Stay tuned.
That's exciting. Yeah. Okay. Well, as we just talked about something pleasant, we're going to talk about something not so pleasant here. I am paying off my last beer bet here from the previous season.
It's pretty pleasant for me
to do this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. What? Two sides of the same coin, my friend. Two sides. And I've been waiting to do this just because I just didn't want to do another shot and, say that I am a failure at things. But here we go. Going to just rip the Band-Aid off and be done. So this last one was Justin Fields throwing for over 3,200 passing yards. I remember we had a very hot debate about this in the episode where we talked about it. I was very adamant he was going to reach this pretty easily, and unfortunately did not. He only threw for 2,562 yards in 13 games. So did not reach the mark, would not have reached it had he played all the games of the season. He was well below
Would have been close.
what he'd be.
It would have been
So,
close. If he had done 17, it would have been close, but he didn't. So you still
No.
lose.
I still lose regardless. But thank you for trying to make me feel just a smidge better, Jake. I appreciate that. So with no further ado, Jake, you are an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius. Cheers, my friend.
Feels good. Feels good to
That does feel good.
say
You're right.
and hear, I bet. Hey, before we jump into our next segment, which I know is our favorite segment, the mailbag has started in the chat already, so I do want to jump into the chat. By the way, everybody watching, please, this is the time like no other to submit your questions to us. This one comes from Cleveland Lives Matter. It says Christian Kirk or rookie picks 207, and then some stuff that I can't tell, and then 309. I'm guessing it just is supposed to be like an ampersand or something, but I guess picks 207 and 309 in full PPR or Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk, as of right now, you can make the argument for being the number one receiver in Jacksonville, obviously pre-draft. So what do you think here? Would you rather take the picks, or are you in on him?
I would take Kirk over the picks. While this is a deep wide receiver class, I think when you're getting towards the end of that second round, it's going to start to lighten up a little bit. Christian Kirk, we know what we've seen with him in that offense when he was the guy. Now, I do think Jacksonville will probably end up taking a wide receiver, but they're not positioned enough to get one of those top 3 elite wide receivers in this class. It'll be more of that like tier 2 type wide receiver. So still give me Christian Kirk, just because of the unknown with those guys, especially at the 207. I don't know who's going to still be there. So yeah, give me the known commodity in this instance.
This is tough. I'm actually going to go with the boat possibility here of the picks of 207 and 309 because Christian Kirk doesn't excite me, and he very well could be a reliable receiver for you, but I would put him like a tier well down below like another reliable guy like Deontay Johnson, for example, would be. If it was Deontay or the picks, I'd be like, hey, just give me Deontay Johnson. Very safe, very reliable. Christian Kirk feels like his upside is very, very capped. Like you said, they won't add a top 3 rookie receiver, but they're going to be adding some folks. I don't think they wanted Calvin Ridley to go. I think that foiled their plans, but I think they're working on replacements already. I would rather take a shot on 207. I don't really care about the 309 as much, and just see if I can get that boat or not. But you gotta look at your dynasty team and think how you feel about it, I suppose. Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to how comfortable you are making those draft picks. Do you feel confident that you have done the research or looked at other people's research and you're confident in what they're providing as far as information that players that are going to be around those picks you think you can get in your dynasty league, then go for it.
Yes, indeed. Well said.
Okay.
Well said. All right.
Thanks.
Well, without further delay, should we talk about another trade that actually happened?
Let's do it.
Drunk, hammered, drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
So in light of it being rookie fever, I thought this was a pretty apropos drunk trade submission from Reddit user Substantial Phil 6472. This is a 12-team, 1-quarterback PPR dynasty league. They traded Amon-Ra St. Brown for Zay Flowers and Tank Bigsby directly after the startup draft this past summer. They say they'd been working their way through several high ABV brews. Would love to know what those were, by the way, and was vulnerable to the rookie hype. The rookie hype I would say certainly got Tank Bigsby more than Zay Flowers.
Mhm.
But what do you think here? Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a stud, but how bad is this in your estimation?
It's pretty bad. Amon-Ra, you can make the argument he's a top 5 wide receiver. I don't know that I would necessarily put them there, but you can make that argument. Tank Bigsby's nothing, unfortunately. While he may end up being, a fantasy fill-in, or if God forbid ETN were to get injured for some reason, he would step into the role. Then he would have fantasy value. But as it stands right now, basically zero value whatsoever. And Zay Flowers, I like Zay Flowers. I think he could develop into a solid wide receiver 2, but I don't know that he has wide receiver 1 upside, especially in that Baltimore offense, where with ASB, you know what you're getting. He has that. If the chips fall the right way, he could actually be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, with just the way that offense plugs along. So, yeah, not a great trade. Too many high octane beers in this case.
Yeah, which is a rare thing to criticize, but in this
I
case, I
know.
think it's reasonable to do so. And it happens every year. There are players who just get crazy rookie hype. It does seem to happen a lot with running backs, especially any
Mhm.
running back that gets draft capital, which Tank Bigsby did. And so there was a legitimate concern by Jacksonville. Like, okay, he's going to be a real thorn in the paw of Travis Etienne.
Mhm.
Just plainly wasn't the
Yep.
case. I don't even think it was wrong to be swept up in this particular rookie hype, but I think you do have to be cautious about what you're willing to pay for that hype and not
Mhm.
not freak out about it.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, so Zay Flowers, like I get the rookie hype. I still think Zay Flowers is like Tyler Lockett to me. He's not going to be
Mhm.
a bona fide wide receiver 1 ever, but he's exciting. He'll have some high weeks, can win you
Absolutely.
sometimes. So Zay Flowers or Christian Kirk, to go back to our chat comment from earlier, who would you prefer at this point?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think I would take Zay Flowers. Just he's a little bit younger, and he does have those weeks where I think you'll be able to get some wide receiver 1 weeks out of him. It's not going to be a consistent thing. Like I said, I think he's a solid wide receiver 2. But yeah, Christian Kirk, I don't see a ton of upside. I think he'll be a low end wide receiver 2, which everybody needs wide receiver 2s on their team. So I'm not knocking that as a bad thing. But yeah, like you said, I just don't see the ups there. You're not going to have those huge boom weeks, I don't think. If I was going to take one of the wide receivers on Jacksonville, it would be Zay Jones.
Ooh, really?
Yes.
Zay Jones, even with Gabe Davis going to town, you don't feel like he's going to be replaced?
I don't think so. No.
Interesting. Did we make a beer bet about Christian Kirk? We did. I had to look back because I wanted to make another one. I was going to say, I knew that we had differing opinions on Christian Kirk. We set the line at 750 yards. Okay. Yeah, that. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now about how we're evaluating. Either way, in this particular drunk trade, yes, that's rough. Just try not to get swept up, even though this draft class,
Mhm.
as you mentioned earlier, is supposed to be very deep at wide receiver. Just don't get carried away with your trades.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good one. I like that one. Thank you, Reddit user. I forget your long name right now, but thank you for that submission. We appreciate it.
Substantial Phil 6472 rolls off the
Yeah,
tongue. I tell you.
and that goes out to all of our listeners out there. Please submit your drunk trades. We will gladly talk about them every single week on the show. It's one of our favorite things to talk about. We like to make drunk trades ourselves. It's part of what makes fantasy football fun, is making those trades, even if they're bad ones. We like to talk about it. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. So please hit us up at Jake Trowbridge, at FF Dusty Dog, at Drinking Fantasy on the Twitter machine. I refuse to call it X, and we will talk about them on our upcoming shows. That being said, Jake, get into this.
Let's talk mailbag.
All right.
We have a lot of questions here that are, I don't know, pretty varied. I'm actually pretty interested in a lot of these. We'll try to get through them all here. Again, anybody who's watching live, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. We'll throw them right into the mix
Absolutely.
here and answer those. But I do want to kick off somewhere else. Reddit user Yeezy Sauce has a question about when to move picks in Dynasty. So what's the general consensus on moving picks at this time of the year with the draft right around the corner? A little bit of extra context here. They're saying, I've received considerable interest on a couple of my premium picks. It's a super flex format. It says, if we really do have 5 quarterbacks going in round 1 in a super flex league, do I pull the trigger if it's a good deal? Or is it smarter to wait until I'm actually on the clock in some of those rookie drafts? So what do you think here? We're very close, obviously, but what's the window look like for you? When do you prefer to move your actual picks?
I have no problem moving picks now. Like I'm actively trying to make some trades to move up in the first round of a couple of my drafts. So I don't have a problem whenever you want to trade picks. I think when you're on the clock is when you're going to get the most value. Because that's when like people are like, I need this player right fucking, it's like I got, I'll do anything to make this happen because I'm so in love with this player that I gotta have him. So when you're on the clock, I think is the best time to make it. But if you're getting deals now that are too good to pass up, I mean, I wouldn't sit and wait on it. Maybe throw out just a little something in your league chat being like, hey, this, the 102 or whatever your pick is, come at me with your offers. It's available, just to like throw it out there to your league. So maybe you get a little bit better offer than the person you're negotiating with. But really, there's never a bad time to make a trade. It kind of goes back to how confident you feel about the projected landing spots for some of these players. If you think that players are going to land where the experts say they're going to, then now would probably be the time to pull the trigger. But if you're not confident or you don't want that surprise where your pick suddenly it was worth more than what was anticipated because of a surprise trade in the draft or something like that, you can wait. But honestly, I don't think there is a bad time.
I mean, I would say because we're so close to the actual NFL draft, the worst time was like a month ago, during where it's just dead zone and nobody's really thinking about rookies that intently yet. People are mostly just starting to get on that train. So now we're nearing the peak, but I agree that the peak is draft night or whatever your draft day is in your league. Like when you are on the clock, you do have all the leverage because people are watching their favorite players fall. Now, I will say it might get a little dicey. If you've got the 111 and you're looking to move that pick, and somebody was really excited about your 111 pick until their favorite person was drafted at 110, you've lost your leverage now. So it still is a roll of the dice. It's not going to be a perfect science by any means, but I don't want to be the guy who's on the clock saying like, I'll give it 20 minutes and field offers and then make my pick. I don't like being that guy, but I will say like the day before, a couple of days before is when I'll start feeling that out. Cause then the anticipation is at its apex, I would say. And we know landing spots unless you do your rookie draft before the NFL draft, in which case kudos to you. You're a better person than I am.
Absolutely.
So I would say still maybe wait a little bit if your draft is not nigh. All right, let's move on here. So this one comes from Reddit user Fantasia Football asking, which player is your top pick for unexpectedly falling off the cliff this season? I will say, Fantasia Football, I would encourage you to go back a couple of episodes where we talked about fantasy free falls. I don't think that we need to go over and rehash all of those things. Listen to that episode for players that have dropped or that we feel have dropped already. But is there anybody that we didn't talk about on that episode, Dustin? An honorable mention that you'd like to throw out here?
Yeah, let me throw out one name, Austin Eckler. He's changed teams. He's not going to get the same usage, I don't think, that he got with the Chargers. He's not going to be the main back. He's not going to get 20 touchdowns. We saw a little bit of regression last year. He's not a big back. He's getting up there in age as far as running backs go. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes another step back this year, even.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I hope that he is just more like early career Austin Eckler and just a pass catching dynamo. And who cares if he gets 8 carries? That would be great. But it is Washington, like you said, and I just can't trust Washington.
Yes.
There's one other name that I would like to just toss on the pile because I don't know. It doesn't feel like people are talking about him enough for my taste. Or, well, they're talking about him too much for my taste in some ways, but not enough from an actual fantasy football perspective. And it's Aaron Rodgers. It's just, I don't see a world where his value ever goes back up. I mean, there's the question about how much he actually even wants to play football at this point, but outside of all that garbage, it's just he's coming off of an Achilles injury. He's still, if you saw a picture posted online of him practicing a couple of days ago, you can still see that massive difference between the leg sizes because it's still so atrophied. Like, this is a guy whose fantasy value was still predicated on his escapability, being able to extend plays and all that. And so I'm genuinely concerned that, he'll ever have fantasy usefulness again. And in fact, I just made a trade. I told you about this, Dustin, but in one of my dynasty leagues, I shipped him and a couple of thirds off for Justin Fields just to say, well, fuck it. One of these guys, I believe, has some upside, and it's not the guy I gave away.
I was saying, I thought that was a steal of a pick or of a trade by you. So kudos on that.
Thank you. I thank you very kindly. I was just waiting for the pat on the back. That's the entire point of that. All right. So this one is interesting here. So fantasy user FF Mike Cash wants us to call our shot. Which player tanks this week during the NFL draft? So which player do you think falls down the real NFL draft board, which would then tank their dynasty outlook? So there's a lot of hot names out there. A lot of guys getting steam, I would say, in advance of this draft. And obviously we know a lot of that shit is just smoke and there's no real fire to it. So do you have an idea of somebody who's getting some of that steam where you're like, I don't know why they're going to go in round 1 like everybody says they are. Anybody spring mind for you?
Oh, I don't have a specific name, unfortunately. I do think it's going to be one of the quarterbacks, though. I know there's the chatter about 4 or 5 being taken in the first round. That's a very high number, and I can see 1 or 2 of those quarterbacks falling, even into like the early second round. I could see a team like trading up at that point into like the early second to try to get one of those that fall. But I just, whether it's Penix or blanking on the other one. Yes, Bo Nix. Thank you, Jake. I can see one of those two, or maybe both of them, kind of having that free fall a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with that. I think both. I think both Bo Nix and Michael Penix could be second round draftees, and I don't even know if they'd be early second round draftees. There's random teams that might go for it. The Broncos, even though they just traded for Zach Wilson and obviously fixed all of their quarterback problems in doing so.
Obviously,
a team like the Broncos, because of how weird Sean Payton is, all right, maybe he grabs one of them, but there's a lot of talk about, JJ McCarthy being like a top 5, top 6 pick. And I could even see him falling into the double digits at least, because this happens every year. I mean, look at 2021's draft class. Everybody was, it's Trevor. Everybody's amazing. Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, on and on and on. And Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys were drafted high, but one of them pretty far, which was Justin Fields. He fell into the double digits, even though people thought he would go in the top 5. It happened with Will Levis last year. He was supposed to be an easy round 1 pick, and he was a second rounder instead. So, yeah, I'm not interested in those quarterbacks either. So we'll see.
I mean, I could see a team like the aforementioned that you mentioned, the Jets, maybe trading up into like the early second to grab one of these guys, since Aaron Rodgers is probably on his last year, I would think. So they would want to grab a quarterback with upside. I don't see them doing that in the first round, but I could definitely see them, like I said, trading up into like the early second to make that happen.
Yeah, and Jets are in a weird spot too because they don't have a second round draft pick right now. So it's like maybe they trade down from their, I think they're picking
Yeah.
10th overall. Maybe they trade down and, hey, I'll grab, a wide receiver in the back half of the first round and then get a second round pick so I can grab QB of the future. And like you said, so we'll see. But we're on the same page about the quarterbacks. Now, are we on the same page about running backs here? So, it's notoriously said this running back draft class is a poopy. However, Reddit user Simply Ravishing wants to know, is there a scenario out there where a running back breaks into the top tier of rookie drafts? So we're trying to imagine an ideal landing spot, draft capital equation that makes that a thing. I mean, is there an actual world for you where that happens? And let's say top tier, by the way, I don't know, top 8, top 10 picks in the rookie draft.
I could see one of the running backs getting picked in the top 10, right around that 8 to 10 range. But anywhere higher than that, I don't see a world where that happens on a consistent basis. You're obviously going to have your outliers where someone's super in love with them for whatever reason. They are stacked with quarterbacks and wide receivers, so they're going to want to take that chance on a running back. But I just no, there's no one in this class. I know there's a couple that have some good upside, and if the landing spot is right, and if all the chips fall the right way, could have decent fantasy value and could have decent NFL careers. But there's not that top end talent that we've seen, in most drafts, in most rookie drafts, where there's usually that one or two big name stud running back that everybody has to have. And this is not the year for it.
Yeah, I tried my best to go through the rookie tiers and rankings and consensus that's out there. And there's a couple of guys that people really like. Jonathan Brooks, people really like, even though he's coming off an ACL injury. Blake Corum, people really like, even though he's kind of an older prospect. He's going to turn 24, midway through the rookie season. If one of those guys lands with like Dallas, I can see somebody doing it. And I could see it being practical to do it because that's an ideal landing spot. There's nobody there. They obviously don't have Zeke anymore. That's long gone. Tony Pollard is long gone. They've got a couple of residual guys hanging out in the backfield. But, if one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the class goes to a spot like that and only a spot like that, then I could see it. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not going to be doing it.
No, I will. Even if one of these running backs lands, say in that spot or what is perceived as an ideal spot, and they're getting pushed up draft boards, I'm not going to fall for that trap. I think that is a trap play for this year, and I am just not going to fall for it. I would rather take these wide receivers and then punt running back until next year at your rookie draft, which is supposed to be a much better running back class, or go out and trade for, once you get closer to the season, these kind of forgotten guys or unsexy
James
players
Conner.
James Conner, Raheem Mostert, those
Aaron
caliber
Jones.
players, where you'll be able to get them for a future late second or third round pick.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just not going to fall for the trap of overdrafting a running back this year.
Yeah, we've all been Clyde Edwards-Helaire enough, I think, at this
Mhm.
point to know to avoid those types of situations. So,
But
on the
everybody
same page
wants that
there.
hotness though. So I mean, I can see I
True.
there's a world where that could happen, Jake, where say he does land with Dallas and we know
Mhm.
there's a need there, like he will get pushed up draft boards at that point. I mean, the same thing happened with CEH. Uh
Yep.
and we do like to forget that, and we're like to say, well, that was an outlier. That's not going to happen again. This is a sure thing. And like I said, it's a trap. Just don't do it. Avoid it at all cost.
That in the later rounds, I'll draft rookie running backs, but in general, like
Absolutely.
I'm just going to spend my rookie draft capital on wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks, and I'm not going to feel bad about it because of the reasons that you already outlined. Now,
Hmm.
staying with running backs here, we do have another question about a sort of holdover from Reddit user Icy Swim 262. They're asking, what's the realistic expectations for Keaton Mitchell now that Derrick Henry is with the Ravens, but Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are gone?
Hmm.
So basically, can Keaton Mitchell be anything now behind Derrick Henry, or is it just his show?
I think it's going to be the Derrick Henry show for the most part. If you could get Keaton Mitchell for a late round pick, or maybe some young wide receiver that's on your roster that has all this potential but hasn't shown anything yet, I would make a trade for him because I think he could be a good change of pace back from what Derrick Henry is. And while I refuse to bet against Derrick Henry until he officially retires, there is always that possibility where this could be the year where he just breaks down. Like I said, I'm not betting on that. The dude is an alien. I swear to God, he is an alien that was just crafted into this beautiful mold of Derrick Henry and placed on this planet just to destroy fantasy football well longer than he probably should. But I think taking a flyer on him, not a bad idea.
Like flyer, like fourth round pick, sure. I'll trade a fourth round pick for him. I won't
I would throw
go
a
above
third.
that.
I would throw a
But
third.
I think he's just yeah, if anything, he's a handcuff. But I don't even think he'll be like a big pass catcher. So speaking of ways that we've been hurt before, I've been Justice Hilled to death. I've been whatever the tertiary running back has been on the Baltimore Ravens. I've had him on my
Mhm.
team over the last like decade, it feels like, and it never pays off. And so now with Derrick Henry there, it just feels like that's a losing game for me. Like you said, I'm not going to bet against Derrick Henry. I'm very thrilled for Derrick Henry and his value this year. And I just
Mhm.
don't think that Keaton Mitchell will be able to catch enough passes to make himself relevant. So yeah, I'm probably out on him, but I'll toss some fourths his way if that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I kind of want to stick with running backs for a second because we're on a good path with them. Let's just throw a couple of names out there. Our guy, the SpongeBob enthusiast himself, is Jamal Williams droppable in dynasty leagues, in your estimation?
Drop
So obviously we've got Kamara still hanging around there.
Mhm. Droppable? No. I mean, I wouldn't drop him. Do I see a path for really great fantasy relevance anymore? Not necessarily. But I mean, we didn't see a lot out of Kendre Miller last year. You would think with a full season under his belt, another off season here, get rid of some of those injuries, he should be able to step into that Jamal Williams role. Yeah, you still have Kamara there. That's fine, but I don't know. I would feel bad dropping him. I just don't know if I could. Obviously, if you're if you need to drop him for bench space with your upcoming rookie draft or something, and he is one of those kind of end of the bench guys for you, then yeah, go ahead and do that. But if he's not, I just wouldn't. I just don't consider him droppable. Just as a general, this guy is droppable.
I think it's just because I would too feel bad about it. I want him at least cheerleading my bench, if anything else. But I mean, Well, look, I get this question. He didn't have a single running back 2 week all of last year. Like he didn't even cross into that top 24 threshold.
Mm-hmm.
That's brutal. And like you said,
Yeah.
Kendra Miller was dealing with injuries last year. He should be coming on. Alvin Kamara is just the guy who won't die. Jamal Williams, we all have fond memories of his, 30 touchdown season that he put together, the year before, 2 years before, whenever it was. I'm trying to find his age. I know he's getting up there in terms of running back age. Yeah, he's 29.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, if you don't want him as an advocate, as a cheerleader for your team, I'd be okay dropping him. Let me ask you this, Jamal Williams or Keaton Mitchell for you?
I would take Keaton Mitchell.
Same.
Pretty easily. Yeah, it's the age. We've seen explosive things out of him last year. It was just kind of the injury that derailed what could have been a very special fantasy season for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, let's keep it in this backfield because Psychological Stock 54 from Reddit wants to know what is Kendre Miller's value. So you hinted at it. The dude was dealing with an injury all of last year. We also didn't get to see that great overlap because Alvin Kamara was suspended for the first handful of games, but Kendre Miller wasn't healthy for the first handful of games. So it felt like that opportunity to seize the day didn't come to fruition for him. So now we've got Alvin Kamara. So eliminate the Jamal Williams of it all because neither of us obviously expect him to be a big deal. But Kamara, now 28 years old, a little bit different than your average running back in the way that he's more like Aaron Jones. So can they coexist, I guess, is the question.
Could they? Sure. I'm very hesitant with Kendre Miller. I know last year I was pretty excited about him. The fact that he just wasn't healthy and then when he was, didn't show off like we had hoped kind of gives me a little pause for concern. I would probably throw, and I don't know if this would get it done, to be honest, but I guess that just shows where I'm at with him right now. I'd throw a couple of thirds at it, see if that gets the trade done. I don't know that I could throw a second at him right now.
I wouldn't either. And I don't think you have to, but in that way, he is one of my favorite trade targets because you don't have to throw much at him. I swear a third and a fourth round pick on draft day will get him. On your rookie draft day, we'll get Kendre Miller. But I also think he's in a unique position because this draft class for running backs, again, does seem to be very, very weak. I don't think the Saints are going to be even grabbing one of the top 5 running backs out of this class. So, like, his position's here to stay. And all that could happen is that he grows this season or Kamara gets injured or he eats into his time regardless because of the age gap or whatever. So it feels very low risk to go trade for Kendre Miller right now. And I'm doing it. In fact, I might do that right after this podcast. I realize I don't have them anywhere. I might have to change that. Okay. Let's see if we can try to answer this one. This is maybe my least favorite question, but we're going to try to answer it anyways. Last minute pre-draft waiver ads. So, are there any waiver type guys out there right now that you think would get a bump in value if their respective NFL teams don't take the same guy at their position in the draft? So, some of these elusive fellas just sitting out there collecting dust on waivers because people are thinking, well, they're wide receiver 3 now, and they're probably going to become wide receiver 4 or 5 after the draft. I mean, any of those guys that you can clear through the clutter to find right now?
Well, one, this is a very tough question to answer because it's so league dependent on your league size. For instance, I'm in a 14-team league, and like our waivers are bare. And we have very deep benches in the offseason. I think we have 35 roster spots in the offseason. So as soon as the season ends, I mean, people are waiver adding all these speculative players. So there's really nothing out there. I mean, so it really is league dependent.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of giving a half-assed answer, but there's not really any one player that I'd be like, oh yeah, this guy's on, 70% of your waivers. You should pick him up. I just, for Dynasty, it's such a hard question to answer.
It is, but I'm gonna try. I pulled up sleepers list and just all
You're
right, I'll
you
look
are
through.
you're a better man than me, Jake.
I'll look through because there could be a couple of diamonds in the rough, and I'm not saying that these guys will do anything. But look, if you're looking for pre-draft waiver ads, I think you could do worse than these couple of guys. I'm going to say Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is on a lot of people's waivers right now in Dynasty. He's super old. He's on Washington right now. He got signed over the offseason. I picked him up off of waivers a couple of weeks ago in one of my Dynasty leagues, so I know it can happen.
That's a great one.
And he's the only game in town for them at tight end. I know it's not a sexy option, but he could legitimately get enough targets to be a top 10 guy pretty easily.
And we know that's not tough.
Absolutely not tough. And on that team, Logan Thomas is gone. He was kind of supposed to be that guy. He's not there anymore.
Yep.
How about Bo Melton? Bo Melton I've seen hanging out. Green Bay Packers wide receiver. That is, wide receiver 4 on the depth chart, presumably right now. But we've talked before, Green Bay's probably not adding any real high caliber wide receivers to this offense. I think they're comfortable with the guys they have. They might throw some late, day 3 picks onto it, but Bo Melton has a chance and you can easily drop him. And last guy that I will throw out here, give my guy Greg Dortch some love. Greg Dortch, all he does is produce for the Cardinals when he's given the opportunity. Right now, they are barren as barren can be in terms of pass catchers. That's going to change. I know that they will add somebody through, and it might be Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's fine because Greg Dortch is not the number one, never pretends to be the number one, but he's that crafty slot guy that overtook Rondale Moore last year. And I don't think they need to worry about Greg Dortch so much as Rondale. So toss those 3 guys onto the pile and don't blame me if they get relegated after the draft. All right.
Okay. What's next?
Let's see if we can do some projections here. Who is this year's Kyren Williams in startups? So this question, by the way, coming from user Dogelon Musk 42069 off of Reddit. Who's this year Kyren Williams? Meaning the guy who at this stage everybody just wrote off as that running back's going to get replaced, pretty easily. I'm not investing anything into him because the draft is going to ruin him. Now, this person thinks that it's Isaiah Spiller because everyone assumes that the Chargers are going to draft a running back. Again, you mentioned Austin Eckler getting shipped off. Now, maybe this guy is a running back for you, or maybe it's a wide receiver or a tight end. I don't think it has to be a running back specifically. But who do you think is being undervalued to that extent?
I mean, I will stick with the running back, and it's someone we mentioned earlier, and that's James Conner. I don't know that Arizona is going to spend draft capital on a running back. And as we said, this draft class isn't very deep for running backs. So I don't know. Even if they got one of the top guys, I don't know that it would be enough to supplant James Conner. So I think he's the guy that you're going to be able to get really late in drafts. He's going to be the forgotten guy, and he's going to return a solid RB2 week in and week out.
Yeah, I love how much James Conner's been mentioned on this episode. I would love to do an entire episode just about James Conner, frankly. So I'm with you on that. I will also throw, it's probably low-hanging fruit, but Zamir White right now for the Las Vegas Raiders. They added Alexander Mattison over the offseason.
Yeah, that doesn't scare me like it would have a year ago.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. We saw what Alexander Mattison did last year with the Vikings when he was given, and I had hopes for Alexander Mattison. So
we all did.
Things a little bit to think about it this way, but Zamir White, obviously, almost identical situation to Kyren Williams. Again, we've talked about this draft class not being great. Maybe they do add somebody onto the heap, but I think Zamir White gets the opportunity because they're sticking with the same coaching staff from last year. same guy who got promoted. You know, it seems like that's going to be an internal kind of love for Zamir White. So that is my pick as well. Let's look at draft night coming up on Thursday. So if you're listening to this before Thursday, I don't know, just stay excited and try not to lose yourself here. But we're looking at night one. What do we think is a draft night miracle? AKA, what's one thing that you just really want to see happen on NFL draft night? I'm going to say it's night one. You can go deeper if you want, but let's say night one.
Night one. Does this have to be fantasy related or just draft related?
They are ambiguous in their questions, so I'm going to leave it ambiguous to you.
All right. I'm hoping that either one of the elite offensive tackles or secondary players falls to the Packers late in the draft. That's my wish. That's my miracle. But if you want to
slips to pick 25.
Yeah. But I mean, if we're going to talk keep it fantasy related, I don't want to see one of the top like 3 quarterbacks go to the Patriots, because I think that would just be a death knell for them at this point. And maybe it wouldn't be as bad as I think, but I think those top 3 in particular have so much upside to them that it would be a shame to see that wasted in a spot like New England, where they just don't have a lot of fantasy assets in a supporting role.
Agree. First of all, I think Patriots are one of the likeliest candidates to trade back and let somebody else scoop up a quarterback, as I think they should. And hey, they can take Bo Nix or Michael Penix in round 2. They can do that.
Perfect.
That's fine.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
But I agree with you that they should draft one of them. And I will throw this on to the heap. In terms of wide receivers, I know that people really want the Chiefs to draft a wide receiver in round 1. They have the last pick in round 1. I know that they want to see it. I've seen the names.
It's not going to happen.
I don't want it to happen. In fact, I think because they're pretty limited in their draft picks later on, I think they'll just trade out of the first round entirely. No, and everybody's going to be disappointed because they're the last pick. So it's going to happen very late. Everybody's holding their breath. Is it going to be Xavier Worthy or Lad McConkey or Oogle McDougal or whoever the fuck these wide receivers are anymore?
Oogle McDougal.
Is it going to be that guy? Oogle McDougal, rare Yukon guy, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, I don't think that they're going to take any of them, and we're just going to have to sit and stew about how much Hollywood Brown can be the guy for them, because they're going to wait until probably day 2, day 3 to really add those guys. And I want that. I don't want them to draft Xavier Worthy or whoever the fuck else at pick 32.
Why not? Because here's my thought.
Yeah,
because it'll be like a CAH situation from a couple years ago, where whoever they draft is going to get pushed up draft boards, and it's a trap. So then you can take advantage of that in your leagues, because they're going to have all this hype. If you personally don't believe that this player is going to live up to that hype. And let's be honest, in this Chiefs offense, where right now it's still Travis Kelce and then everybody else, I wouldn't expect that to change if they're bringing in a rookie wide receiver in the first round. Like that's a good call. That sounds like a trap to me. So if you have, say, whatever, like the 105, 106 in your draft, chances are that person is going to get pushed up to the draft board that much. You could probably get a haul for it at that point. So you trade out of that pick, let someone else, fall on the sword at that point, take that player, and you could get a haul of draft picks or players for it.
That's fair. Okay, I rescind it. I do want that for the landmine approach in Dynasty.
I understand your sentiment, though. Like I do understand where you're coming from.
I'm tired of the projections. Everybody wants a new Tyreek Hill
Yeah.
for the Chiefs. It's guys, it's not going to happen. That's
It's
not how they operate these days.
Nope.
And that's okay. That's okay. All right. Last question that we have here from the predestined mailbag. Again, anybody else watching, go ahead and chuck your questions into there. We'll try to get those answered in the chat. But let's look at this. So from a buyer's perspective in Dynasty, they want to know. Let me see who this was. This was Business OK 7351 from Reddit. Is buying running backs outside of your top 3 Dynasty guys. So let's say CMC, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, probably your top 3
fair.
in Dynasty. Is that safe? So outside of those top 3 guys, right now, is buying anybody outside of that something that you're actively doing? Or is it better to wait until after the NFL draft and maybe even longer, say till the end of training camp? Is it a better idea to do that for running backs? What is your approach to buying running backs in the offseason, Dustin?
As a general rule, I try to wait until later in the offseason. If a great value, if someone throws you an offer for a running back and it's too good to pass up, obviously I'm not going to pass that up. But typically I like to try to wait until it gets closer to the beginning of the season, mainly because with running backs and injuries, they tend to get dinged up even in the preseason or in training camp. And if it's a hamstring or something like that, those can kind of linger on into the season. So I try to avoid trading for running backs early in the offseason, just because I want to, if I'm trading for a running back, I want to make sure they're ready for week 1. I want them healthy, because at that point I'm going to feel like I'm a contender. And I need that running back on my squad to perform week in and week out. Like I said, I'm not actively not going for running backs this time of year, but it just depends on what that trade would look like and if it's too good a value to pass up, basically. But otherwise, yeah, I try to wait until we get closer to the start of the season.
Yeah, I have a 2-part answer to this one, I have to say. I apologize in advance for it. But if there's a guy that is so undervalued right now, it's again, bring up James Conner, where the consensus is he's getting too fucking old. They're going to replace him. They're going to bring in somebody else. Now, before the NFL draft, this very small window is the time to trade for him. Because after the draft, if we believe he's not going to actually get replaced, the price goes up. And the price is already so low that I'm insulated from risk of trading for a guy like James Conner. I would say the same thing about the guy, Zamir White, right? Anybody who is in that Kyron Williams spot pre-draft, pre-NFL draft is the way to go for trading for those guys. But if you're just talking about almost any other running back who's just kind of like fair market value right now, you don't have anything to gain, I don't think, about trading for them right now. It's better to wait until, the draft will happen. They'll add some guys, some wonderful undrafted free agent that everybody clamors for all of a sudden will show up on one of these teams and, oh, fuck, he's Chris Brooks or whoever from Miami last year. And it will suppress their value still. So unless it's a couple of those select dudes, I'm going to wait until like a week before the season to trade.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you, Jake. So before we sign off, I just saw a sleeper alert come up on my phone regarding the draft. It says the Eagles are talking to the Denver Broncos about trading for the 12th pick in the NFL draft so they can take cornerback Quinion Mitchell. The Broncos would get the Eagles' first round pick, the 22nd selection, which they would then use to draft quarterback Bo Nix, and they would also get a second.
Now, I don't want to pat myself in the back
again.
So much from
It's a
20 minutes
rumor.
earlier. It's a rumor, but again, the Denver Broncos is the team that would take that level of quarterback and feel good. In fact, I projected that in my initial mock draft. I just want to say, follow me on TikTok.
Don't hurt yourself.
Mondays and
Don't
Wednesdays.
hurt yourself trying
But
to reach around to pat yourself on the back.
I'll give myself a reach around. Don't worry about it. I'm flexible enough. I'm stretched.
Hey,
But
didn't you
I
say
do
this was
think
PG? Come on.
no, that just stands for pogo. But again, I do think this is the time we're going to get so much of these smoke screens, so many rumors. I mean, it's been going on for like a week now, but that shit's really going to ramp up over the next couple of days. So take it with a grain of salt.
And I'm here
Don't
for it.
overreact.
I'm here for it. I love every single rumor that comes out. I think it's terrific. It just gets me even more excited for the NFL draft. And I love just the way that NFL teams have been taking their draft picks over the last couple years and treating it more like how we do with Dynasty. They're like, yeah, fuck it. Let's trade some picks. Let's make some moves, or at the trade deadline. Let's yeah, fuck it. Let's trade this guy. Like, I love it. I think it's great. I love that kind of perception on draft picks and everything is shifted. It just makes it way more exciting and way more fun. I love that there could be so much chaos here on that first night with a bunch of trades that it just gets me so excited.
Ever since draft day came out, I'm telling you, it's been life imitating art. Everybody just trying to get that piece of the draft day vibes. By the way, if you haven't watched the movie Draft Day this week, shame on you. It's a
I'm
great
going to do
movie.
that tomorrow night.
No,
I'm doing it
but
tomorrow.
yes, you should still watch it. Yeah, get yourself some
Yep,
Costner in your
absolutely.
life.
That's right. And it's just a great NFL movie, all about the draft, which if you're degenerates like the rest of us, you got to love it. Got to love it.
Yeah. By the way, I drank both my box. I got to tell you, third space, hands down, kicks Capital's ass.
Ooh, hands down.
It's not even close. Capital, after drinking this third space one, Capital is really fucking malty. Like way sickly malty compared to third
really?
space. So yeah.
Wow. Good to
Not as
know. Good to know. And I do like the Capital Mailbag, but apparently not side by side with a superior beer.
No, got to drink that guy first if you're going to drink it at all.
Okay. Well, Jake, any final thoughts here before we sign off for the evening?
I mean, follow us at Drinking Fantasy on Twitter. But other than that, no, just enjoy draft night. Watch it. Try not to get too sad when your team passes over the one guy that you assumed that they would pick. We're Packers fans. We've been through that heartache many a time. Try not to let it get on top of you.
Yep, that's right. And for those of you that maybe have drafts starting this weekend, I know I have one that starts Saturday. If you have any last minute questions, hit us up at the handle that Jake just showed at Drinking Fantasy, or one of us at Jake Trowbridge, at FF Dusty Dog. We're here to answer any of your fantasy questions, even if it's the last minute rookie questions. We will try to help you with that. As always, go out, give us a rate and review, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on YouTube. Hit the bell. You'll get notified when we go live every single week, so you don't miss this live. And you could join us in the chat, ask questions. We'll answer them right there on the spot for you. We always prioritize our guests in the chat when it comes to answering the questions they have. So please do that. We have a lot of fun with it. I feel like our chat guests also enjoy our banter in the chat with them. So be a part of that crew and enjoy draft night. It's a magical time of year, or draft weekend, I should say, not just draft night, but really the first round is the most exciting piece of it, especially for fantasy. So go out and enjoy that. And then I'm sure we'll have a lot of reactions and reviews come next week's episode. So be sure to tune into that. And with that, we're out. Keep drinking and talking fantasy football, folks.
Cheers, FFers.